Hey everyone, welcome to this podcast. I'm Zuki. Today we'll be talking about fate and free will. I'm glad to announce that in this episode, I'm joined by my friend Shinangoli, and we'll be exploring this topic together. So join us as we talk about free will and fate in this episode.
Thank you for having me here. It's an interesting topic and I'm excited about it. Let's see what we've got on this topic. It's a topic that it requires a bit of intelligence and a bit of understanding in real life, real-time everyday things. So let's go about this. Thank you for having me here, Stan.
Thank you, Shinangoli. So the issue of fate and free will, it's a bit of an endless philosophical topics that don't seem to have a final conclusive answer. So I have a question that I can pose for you. Do you believe that our future, our destiny is predetermined, or do you believe that our future, our outcome is shaped by our decisions and choices?
These are complex questions as we've agreed, but I'm looking at it as a situation where your daily activities are the ones that determine what you're going to be today, tomorrow, and any other day in the future. I think that's what much applies in our day-to-day life. It's not about destiny that is predetermined. It's about what you do today that will determine how your tomorrow will be.
So your take is that we are fully governed by free will.
Yeah, I think life is always about free will. Destiny, it's not much of an applicable concept.
Okay, but if you have to look at it from a religious perspective,
okay,
specifically Christianity, you'll have to agree with me that a lot of issues in religion, especially Christianity, they are based on the idea that there is a fate, there is a destiny that the Creator or God has for everyone, and if something happened that's the way it was supposed to happen. It has always been planned to happen that way, and even your tomorrow, even your next year, it's already determined to go in a certain way.
I don't disagree with you much, but I disagree with the general principle that the Bible puts life in a destiny type of situation. I think it's about how you understand the Bible, your comprehension of the thing. So since we have so many situations that if you were to internalize it yourself and try to analyze everything, it still points to free will. You will determine what will happen to you. Not even if the Bible does not say that directly, there are pointers that if you do this, these will be the consequences. And I don't think it really has much of that destiny part. The destiny thing, I think it's much of what the current crop of people who maybe, let's say, preachers or people who believe in the Bible in a certain way. I think it's much of their take more than it is a reality. It's not quite a reality, even from my understanding of religious principles.
So what I'm getting is that even based on the scriptures, the idea of destiny is not clearly defined.
Yes, from my perspective, the idea of destiny and free will, that's actually it's up to you. It's you to make what tomorrow will be. I think that's what basically not even Christianity alone. I think most of the religions, including the traditional African religions, I think that's what they actually advocate for.
Well, I as far as the scriptures are concerned, that's the Bible. I think I slightly agree with you on the idea that it's not destiny is not clearly defined in the Bible, because if you are to use the example of the book of James, there's somewhere where it mentions that it says faith without action is dead. So that will mean that your actions in the context of the scriptures of the Bible, they do actually determine your outcome, because if you just believe and you don't put in the work, you won't get the results. So I'll say it's true that in a way, even the Bible still points that we have to, our decisions, our actions, our course of action will actually determine our destiny or our outcome. So I think maybe the way the scriptures are interpreted by different preachers, pastors, etc., I think there is that aspect of destiny being the central point of the Bible, but again there is that aspect of that you still have to put in the actions to get that. And for me, I believe that I'll say that if I believe that humans have free will. That's actually what I believe, that humans have free will.
Okay.
And for me, I don't even think from a logical perspective.
Okay.
It's a bit philosophical, but also from a logical perspective, it will make no sense to create humans with free will. So maybe I can explain what I mean by that.
Okay.
Having a creation of intelligent and beings capable of rational thinking, and they don't have free will, doesn't seem to look like a logical decision for me, because if humans don't have free will, that will mean that everything for them is predetermined. So that means everything they do, there is always going to be one outcome for each one of them. There is always a destiny for each one of them. So if God created humans to maybe to worship him, and it's in his own image, but to worship him, it will mean that all their evolution, everything they learn here, every action they take, is basically useless, because they don't really get to choose these things if their destiny is already predetermined.
Okay.
So I believe that concept, from a creation perspective, okay, I conclude that it makes sense to have humans with free will. Free will makes more sense, that they get to choose their destinies, they grow from them, they make mistakes. And actually this free will leads to a lot of destruction also of these humans. Okay. Humans have actually destroyed themselves because they have this free will. Okay. Because if everything was fated, it will mean that all the pain that humans cause each other, it is not really the decision of humans. It has already been predetermined that way. Okay. To just cause pain to each other. And then, since the Bible and other religious texts says God is all good, God is all good, God wants its creation to be good, then it will mean all this pain has been set to happen, because everything is, if you're arguing from the perspective of destiny. Okay. That will make it a bit illogical to have humans hurting each other all the time. If the Supreme Being is all good, why will he rejoice in having a creation that will keep doing all these things? So I believe when humans hurt each other, when humans cause problems to each other, they are practicing their free will. Okay. And they are not doing this because they are programmed to just do bad things, but they have free will to choose good or evil. And sometimes, even as I say, humans do a lot of harm to one another, still humans do a lot of good to one another. Okay. All this is not because humans are just good or are just bad, but they are both. We are a combination of good and evil.
So in short, would you argue that there is a certain part of humanity that is generally meant to go the direction of free will, while parts of their lives is determined by destiny?
Not exactly. What I'll say is that when it comes to, okay, I think what you're trying to say is that humans we have a combination of both free will and fate. Okay. That humans are they can some of their destinies are already fated. Yeah. And that some of them are shaped by their actions. For me, I don't believe that at all. I believe that it is our free will that forces us to make the decisions that we make, that lead us to our specific outcomes. So if you don't try, if you don't don't do the work, let's say like the Bible says, faith without action is dead, then you won't really get the results.
Okay, but I think I believe I can agree with you on most of the things, but also while I also know that of course I have to work hard. You have to work hard to get to where you want to be. You have to put in an effort. You have to have the actions for the faith to work. I also believe in some cases we have destiny. There is a destiny that is already determined for us. You can't run away from it, in some sense. Because tell me why we have someone who works hard. They do what they believe is correct for everything, and they don't get to that goal. While there is another person who won't put in the effort, but will get to that goal. They won't put in the effort. So how do we explain that from the perspective of free will? Because this person is not choosing to do one thing, but it happens.
Well, I get your point,
Okay.
but I think also your argument is based a bit on the assumption that the people are working hard towards a certain goal and they don't achieve it. What they did was actually the right thing. Because the problem with work, you may actually work and do a lot in something and still not be in the right direction. Because the problem with if your destination is going from A to B, if your destination is going from A to B, and you take a path that takes you to C, you see, no matter how fast you walk, no matter how much you walk, you're never going to get to B, right?
But I'm talking now in the sense that this person is doing exactly what is supposed to be done. Like, for example, in the real world, we're talking about our daily lives. You've been told to go to school, that you have gone to school. You've been told to work hard in school, you've worked hard in school. You've been told to network and create friends and try to be innovative. You've done that, but still in the end, you won't get to that goal that you wanted to, let's say the financial goal that you wanted to, just because at some point maybe you are with peers who maybe they weren't even doing what you are doing. They never studied hard. They never tried to make any sensible connections. They never put in the work that every other person is putting in to reach that goal. And I'm not talking just from the sense of contrasting. You can comparing and contrasting. I'm trying to say it could be you and me. We do the very same things. We study the same. We go to school, get the same marks. Go to primary, go to secondary, go to campus, do the same things, get the same marks. Approach life the same way, but at the end of it, you get what you wanted, and I don't get to that goal. And it's not like it's something that something new that has happened. I believe everyone, including our viewers here, there are people who have friends, and they did what they believe was right. They actually did the exact same things, but outcomes are different. How would you explain that from the free will perspective?
Okay, that's actually a good point. From the perspective of free will, I'll say that the problem with free will, which actually I have to make before you continue to answer that question.
Okay.
Since everyone has free will, if you are going to say I have free will,
Okay.
I have to believe everybody has free will too.
Okay.
And that means as I work towards my own goals with my own free will, as I make my own choices, other people are also making their own choices.
Yes.
With their own free will.
Yes.
And it's possible this course of action from different people may clash at some point.
Okay.
And because of this free will, again, because humans are capable of both good and evil,
Okay.
it's possible also someone can actually use their free will and take some shortcuts. That's actually very possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
People can take shortcuts so that someone who is not even doing much in life, they have not made a lot of effort, can still win. Well, someone who is trying to do the right thing, there is always that right path. You're supposed to follow this right path, and so you can win. You can lose while trying all your best, and someone else may win doing maybe very little based on what you think they are doing.
Okay.
But it's possible that they did some different things that are not exactly the right things, right, to get where they wanted. And so in that case, when you look at them, because you don't know exactly what people did, because that is actually also common when people look at success, maybe on social media. Mostly it's just social media. If you are not that close to someone, you always see their lives on the internet.
Okay.
It's very easy to say, okay, I've been doing the right thing, and these people, they're even younger than me, or they're my peers. They seem to be doing way better, and I've put in more effort. So the facade of the life that they show you on the internet, whether it's real or not,
Okay.
it can actually be very confusing, and you may think, okay, I've been doing all this, how comes I'm not getting what I want? So it's possible they did not even do the right thing, based on the way they define standards of right thing.
Okay.
Maybe they just followed some shortcuts, they got what they wanted, and now it looks like it is you who is failing, right?
Okay. Okay.
Now, at the end of the day, all those things they did, they just chose to do those things, whether they are right or wrong, right? Which is which is just free will. Like when someone decides to commit a crime to get paid, they commit a crime and make money.
Mm-hmm.
It's still free will, right? That's not fate. No one, they were not fated to rob a bank. They just did that. So in that case, if you don't know what they did specifically to get the money or to get the success, whatever success we are talking about here, it is possible to just assume that my side of free will is not true, and you can say there maybe someone was just fated to succeed and I'm not.
Okay. In that case, that's a valid case. But I'm talking about the constant things. Let's say things like, I could talk of a spiritual thing like death. I think that's a classic example of destiny, because no matter what you do, that's something that is already, you can't do anything in particular to evade that. I think that's a classic definition of fate, because whether you work out or you don't, whether you eat right or you don't, whether you try to be religious or you don't, whether you believe in God or you don't, I think that's something that's already been put there. You are destined to die. That's something you cannot evade. And I think that's a classic example. That's why I was trying to say, well, free will exists. It's not the case in everything. I think it's sort of, free will exist, but it will have to coexist with destiny, because there are things you won't shape. And I believe the same applies to the argument we just been having. If at all we're talking about working, there are people who are doing exactly the same things, but their outcomes will always be different. They won't be the same at all, because these people they have maybe the same environment to do everything, and they do that thing that they're supposed to do, but at the end of the day their outcomes will vary. So while one may go to the right direction, the other one will take the left maybe, and that difference is what now it's minute. The destiny, I believe the part of life that is dependent on destiny is small, but you can't just evade it. You can't evade that part that is destined for you. There's still a part of life that we can't run away from, and that part is where destiny really is.
Well, Shinangoli, that's an interesting take, especially on the aspect of death, where you're saying death is, you are destined, everyone is destined to die. Okay, in this case, destiny is a strong term when you talk about death. Everyone has to die eventually. But if we are to look at it from a physics perspective, if you look at it from a physics perspective, death has to happen. Now, so that I can answer your question and show that death is not really a destiny or a fate kind of a thing. I can answer it that way. Something kills everyone. And sometimes, mostly it's just disease. That's the most common. People get into accidents, they die, all that. And whenever someone dies, people say they were fated. It was destiny, they were supposed to die at that time. But all those things that involve this death, Now let's eliminate one of them. I'll explain that one at the end. There's one which is natural death, whereby you are not sick, you just die because of old age. So there is that old age. Let's first not talk about that one first. But there are these other kinds of death, which I believe all are related to free will. Any other kind of death, maybe it was an accident. Like there were so many actions that were taken headed to that action, to that death, and it happened because it had to happen. So, for example, if someone goes bungee jumping or skydiving, you can have there is a big chance you can have an accident in such scenario. Or you go swimming in areas with sharks, right? Okay. You are likely to be mauled by a shark. Okay. Right?
I get it.
So in such a case, can you say that was fate? That was that person was fated to
Yeah,
die an accident. I would say that because I would say it's more of a free will.
I still believe that person, first, we can't call it free will because that person didn't do that action specifically with the target of going to die. Because, okay, there are people who do that, but definitely it's not the largest part of humanity. It's the smallest part. But we're now talking about something like a person who went swimming or someone who went
and drowned
skydiving. If you're looking at that person didn't go skydiving and say, okay, today I just feel like dying, I want to go and skydive. It's something that happens as a result of what they're doing, and that's now the key point. The person is not, if we are talking about free will, will mean this person went there to take that action and anticipate the outcome that we are talking about, which is death, right?
Yeah,
but this person didn't choose to go and die. This person chose to go.
They did not choose to go and die. But what I'm saying is, as long as this action, the death, the way it happened, it is clearly defined by the laws of the universe, right? It doesn't really go beyond those laws. Because for me, I believe for destiny to make sense, it is something that should not be able to be. It should not be explained by the laws of physics or the laws of the universe that we know. Because if anything can be explained by the laws of physics or the laws of the universe that we have, it is hard, because destiny is a bit of supernatural fate. Those are a bit supernatural happenings, right? If you explain it clearly, so whatever happens with the laws of physics or the laws of the universe, for me it ceases to be destiny, you know?
I don't believe so, because let's say even from the perspective of physics, if we are talking about destiny, we know physics has specific laws and formulas. Yeah. That if you take a specific path, there's destiny for you. Something is destined to happen at that end. Like that thing is predetermined. It's just waiting for you to get there, but you will finally get there, right?
Because you see the way you explain death. So when we come to old age, the way that death has to happen for everybody, even if you chose not to. Because if this person did go swimming with sharks, you want to be mauled by a shark, right? Yeah. There's no shark. You want to be mauled by a shark. You're not going to be mauled by a shark in the house.
So, but you could also just sit on the.
But you can still. So what I'm saying is, the idea that death is supposed to happen at a specific time, for me, I don't really think that is exactly the thing. I believe everything will die eventually. Every living thing has to die. But this death has nothing to do with time. It is all about entropy. So other form of the other death that I was to talk about was old age, where people just die because they're old. If there are no accidents, there are no disease. The body is just healthy. Eventually still someone has to die.
Yes.
Why? Entropy, right? Because entropy in this case, I mean the entropy in physics, the best way to explain is, the best example to use is, if you have a room that is clean, after you clean a room, that room will eventually get dirty. There is no other way. As long as there is no observation or interference, it eventually gets dirty.
But isn't that the...
So the idea is, the way the body is designed, the way the human body or any other living thing, these cells age. And they age, and they don't reverse. The process of aging doesn't reverse, because if it reverses, then we go against the laws of thermodynamics. It has to keep, the disorder has to increase. So that's why no matter how healthy someone is, those cells have to age, and at some point, whether it's 100, whether it's 150, whatever age it is, they die. But of course, other things like accidents, radiation, exposure to some chemicals, they can increase this entropy, so that someone can even die at 40, and it's not an accident. They just died because of this entropy. So all these things, because it has to happen like that, right? I would say there was a fate that this person was going to die at 50.
How do you explain that now that this person didn't put in any effort to die?
They didn't put any
effort to die. How do you explain the fact that they died? Isn't it something that is already there? Like, it's something that is predetermined. They will die. Like when you're born, it's something that is predetermined. You will die. Isn't it your destiny to die?
I wouldn't say it's your destiny to die. I just say it is not possible for you to live forever under the current laws of the universe.
Which is exactly what we are saying destiny is. You won't evade it. It's something that is there, and no matter the action you take, it won't. Let's say, there are subjective areas, like let's say being successful in life, irrespective of what you perceive success to be, whether it's in family life, whether it's in terms of being wealthy, in terms of owning pieces of land, or becoming a leader, or just fulfilling what you want. That's a subjective point in terms of destiny, because while you believe everything that I do right now shapes what that success will be, whether I will succeed or fail, right? That's a subjective area, because it has gray areas that you can't explain either through destiny or through free will.
So you're saying whether someone will be successful or not, it is not clear as far as free will and fate is concerned.
Yes, that's. I think part of it. It's not an absolute thing, like you said. It's absolutely on free will for you to succeed in whichever measures that you think define success. But from my side, I believe there is a situation in which even that success is defined by destiny. There's a specific destiny that is there for you.
So you are saying success,
and that's why I can define two people who did exactly the same thing, or more or less the same thing, but their results vary in a very big way.
So you are saying there is some aspect of randomness in success.
Yes, I believe success, while it's not fully random, it could be random
in some cases.
Yes, I believe destiny has its place, definitely has some place in shaping whatever you define as success. And I think that's the primary point of religion. And even as you say, the Bible says you have to have actions before faith. I believe there are some cases that the Bible has demonstrated that having faith is one thing, but if God just wants to do it, you will still do it. We're talking about people like Abraham, who didn't do nothing about action and faith. They didn't even know faith in the first place, but it was their destiny to be chosen by God, so they just were chosen. It's not like they did anything to be chosen by God.
So you are saying for some cases it is more of destiny. Yes, you are destined to be that.
Yes, I believe there is no absolute in terms of free will. Free will is, in fact, in some cases it's restricted to almost zero in terms of free will.
So in some cases you're saying you combine both. It's a combination of free will.
Yes, in most cases it's actually free will and fate, and in some cases free will is diminished to almost zero.
Well, I'm tempted to agree to some of your arguments on having them combined in some cases, like the case of Abraham. That does make sense. So in cases where we are talking about the supernatural, I believe it will be possible to not use free will, because they're not really normal events, like being chosen by God. That's not it's more of a supernatural. So I'd say, I'll agree with that in such cases, it has to be more of both a combination of it, even in some cases just purely fate or destiny. But then again, if it's fate, so it would mean that from the beginning Abraham was just destined to do that.
Yes.
So then again, I think with religion, especially Christianity, being Christians myself, I think you're also Shinangoli, also a Christian.
I think that's
So you are not.
maybe I'm a Christian because I was told I'm a Christian, but
so you are just told you're Christian, but you are not sure.
Yeah, I'm an African, but
So
I believe
you are not sure you are Christian.
I think in that case, I've grown the environment by nature. By nature, I'm a Christian.
Okay,
But
so
I believe by nature, I'm an African. But I believe if you take these concepts from a perspective that you want to understand everything, I believe it all comes to, they will agree at some point, because if you read the Tao Te Ching, you read the things like the Epic of Gilgamesh, if you listen to African folklore, we're talking about God, and differences are just little. And that's why I think even those traditional African societies, they believed in fate, in fate and destiny. They believed it's shaped by powers that are beyond us. Yes, they would work, but they knew at some point.
Well, that makes it. But whether it's religion or spirituality, or whatever you learn to define it, I believe the reason why people actually love fate or destiny, I think I'd say people love it because not everything is fated. A lot of things are actually not fated. They're just free will. But people love it from a spiritual and religious perspective because it allows them to
avoid
responsibility, and also stuff that they have no control over. They get to say this is not mine.
But then that's exactly my argument, because it doesn't make sense if we're being logical. If for example there are two people, Jen and James. Jen and James have done the very exact things, like even from a perspective that we can just see. Let's say they did a little things different, but we know very well. Let's say we stay with these people for, let's say they are our classmates. Let's say we stay with them from 8 a.m. to something like 9 p.m. when everyone goes home. That's about more than half a day that we spend with each other, and we know some more hours will go to sleep. So whatever they will do in their own space is quite limited.
Yeah.
So I've seen what Jen and James, or Jen and that other person have done throughout their day. So it's mostly the same. We say it's mostly the same. If it's in university, we get out here and you realize they have different outcomes for what they've been doing, and not just different, significantly different. Talk of things like someone is already a billionaire and another one is a pauper trying to live, trying to find that one meal a day. You see, you expect, even if there was a difference in how they approached life in their personal time, it was quite little. So if we are talking about free will, these people most likely shaped their life in the same direction. But if they did something slightly small and Jen did it better than James, I expect they will go to the same direction. But if Jen will be a billionaire, at least James will not be struggling to afford a single meal. But in real life, we know such situations exist where these people, we've seen them doing the very exact thing over and over again, but their outcomes are significantly different.
Well, I don't know, I had to disagree with that. While it's possible to have two people with different lives, I do believe that two people who doing the same thing consistently, it's hard for them their success to be that much different. I do believe that consistency and hard work and also discipline, those are things that actually lead to a lot of success. And when I would say success in this case is just mostly financial.
Okay.
It's quite unlikely that you are consistent every day and you are working towards something that you do, and you just end up with nothing, and someone else working on it will ends up with something.
But do you agree with me that there are some cases that you've seen that are like quite yes, in most cases, if you do something consistently, two people are doing something consistently, they will probably have the same outcomes. But you've seen cases in which these people are doing the same things, but there are not many cases, maybe they will be 2 out of 10, but you realize the directions of their lives are quite different.
Yeah, because like the odds of that, it's not even about odds. I don't think it's even possible.
It's possible. We see these things happening. Like, I'm sure our viewers know of a friend who was doing exactly the same thing as them, and they are maybe too much ahead or too much behind them, and it's not like they have done something.
Because what I know is this, where especially when we're talking about such things, we tend to be biased, and the bias comes from the fact that we don't know exactly what the other person was doing, which is what causes that bias.
Yes,
whereby we make the conclusion that I did exactly what they did, but they won and I lost, or I lost and I won,
yes,
I won and they lost.
I get that part. I get that part of the argument, but I'm asking, at least you'd expect their life to go, like, you would expect them to run in the same direction. Just one will just be ahead of the other by a few miles, but you don't expect one to be running towards the east and another one towards the west. But there are cases in which this other person is struggling to find a single meal a day, and this other one has become a billionaire, and they used to do the very exact thing. Let's use an example of a Kenyan high school, for example.
Yeah.
In a Kenyan high school is a typical example of a place where we have the same conditions.
Yeah.
People eat the same food. People spend more or less the same time in class. Maybe a difference of 1 or 2 hours. Maybe someone will put in an extra 1 or 2 hours. But you expect at the end of the day, these people, if one will have an A, and we spend, let's say, 10 hours let's just say 10 hours of our day in class. If you spent 11 and I spent 10, that's already, that difference is insignificant considering the time we've stayed in class together, right?
Yeah.
So you'd expect if one got an A, another one will get maybe a B plus or something. But in that same class, you'll find someone getting a D minus, a D plus. I'm not saying those are bad grades, but that disparity can't account for just 1 hour difference of study, right?
Yeah, but if I'm hearing you right, you're bringing in the idea that these people had the same opportunity, the same time,
yes,
the same hour duration, yes, of study
to influence
their
lives,
and one of them did way better than the other.
Okay.
But then in such a case, you're actually ignoring so many factors. You are only considering very few parts of the equation, because you have things like their mental capabilities.
Okay, which is now.
So they have those mental capabilities, which is a big part.
Okay.
Which plays a role in that, because there's someone actually who doesn't even read and they just pass.
Okay.
So if you have to use them in that equation, the duration won't even be important to them, because they actually passed without even studying.
Okay.
And then you also have to consider other things like their mental state at the time. Because there are people, let's say they're kids in high school right now, and maybe they come from very difficult environments. So they have some trauma that they carry around. They have some baggage, mental baggage.
Okay. And
that actually plays a role in, it will play a role in how they do in school. But not just school, even after they come out of school, what we have been through can determine whether we win in life or we don't, because it actually affects what we have been through will affect our lives. Now, the problem with that is, since the past is not really relevant to life, like what has already happened. You see, that's the issue with life. What happened yesterday, and that's it, or last year. Whether you had a difficult year, last 5 years was difficult for you, life keeps moving. It doesn't, time is linear. It doesn't like stop for you to go back and fix things. So the idea is, no matter where you are, what you have to do is, what can you do with what you have at that point, right? What can you do with what you have at that point? So for that child who gets out of that school with a C and the other one with an A, the one with a C can still go and do a different training, and it can still do well in life, right?
Yes.
It doesn't mean necessarily just because they did not do
Yes,
well.
and the one who got an A can still fail.
Not fail, because at the end of the day, those choices matter, because there are choices that will be made, and those choices are made every day. Because you see, the thing with life, it's not like you can win. You know, it's not a game you win and then you just stop. Okay. You have to keep playing, right? And sometimes a win can mean a loss. Sometimes a loss can be a win. You know, life is very complicated, and because of that, you have to realize it is hard to look at those kids from just using time duration that they took in class, and you just use that to determine that this person has done so well compared to this other one. You know.
But exactly how do we then define free will from that perspective? Because you talked about their capacity, their maybe ability to learn. There are those who will maybe read the whole day and not grasp something, or maybe grasp less than those who just went to class, right? Isn't that also backing the point that at some point destiny, because this person didn't do anything to earn that brain, right?
They not do anything to
earn that brain, to grasp what they are reading or what they are hearing from the teacher, right?
So they did not make any effort to be smart.
Yes.
They were just smart.
Yes, they just found themselves smart, right? Isn't that another definition of will, free of I mean destiny? Because this person didn't do anything to earn that. He was just destined to be that smart, right? And we are also talking about this person who got a C and went ahead to win in life, right? Whichever perspective we look at it. Let's say let's remove the financial part, because that's mostly misunderstood. Let's say this person who got a C went and maybe started a business or something like that, and has life in order. And we have this other one who went, maybe got the money that he wanted, but not much is working for them, maybe in terms of, in whichever way you define success, maybe family wise, maybe in terms of making friends, maybe in terms of managing those finances. These two people, they still have a life that probably was destined for them, not the one that they chose. Because in classic terms of free will, you'd expect this person who maybe performed better, they went on and did something, they put in another more effort. Let's say another one went to a vocational training, another one went to university. If it's free will, we are talking about the one who went to university, they put in an extra effort to go to university, right?
Yeah.
So you'd expect they will still be ahead of the other one, right? Because it's free will. They chose the path that defines what they think is success, right?
Yeah.
So if they chose that path and they should be ahead of this other one, how comes there are situations in which we have the one who went maybe to perform better in high school, went ahead to university, and they still find themselves somehow so much behind the one who they perceived as wouldn't wouldn't succeed because they maybe thought they didn't put in enough effort. Don't you think we define that by destiny? Because this person, they didn't do as much as the other one to shape their future in terms of what people are seeing.
Yeah.
But somehow they got there, right?
So based on what you're saying, I think your point is so in a way fate determined their success.
Yeah. More than free will did. Of course, free will played a part.
So there was free will that played a part.
But fate played, but destiny played a major part in that.
So it's hard to. So based on that, you're saying it's hard to just look at one's life it's hard to just look at it from the lens of free will without measuring fate, and it's hard to look at the life one's life from the lens of fate without mentioning free will.
Yeah. I think that's how it is. It's a mixture, a bit of a mixture of both. In some cases, you will find more of something that is destiny defined than fate, than free will defined, and in some cases, you will find things that are more of free will decided than fate, than destiny. So I think it's just a balance of the two. You just have to find the right mix. If you are destined to do something, I think that's why there exist. I think that's why there exist things, ideas like grouping people according to their personalities, because that person can do very little to change their fate in terms of personality. So you just have to place that person in a career that is defined by that personality. Like if this person is mostly, let's say, inclined towards if this person is maybe more of inclined towards being much talkative, if you put that person in a place where they'll have to maintain significant silence, you're probably trying to lead that person away from their destiny, because at the end of the day that person would perform better in careers like law or such. I'm not saying it's an absolute indicator of what this person can do, but I think that's how life. I think even normal people have evolved to look at life from the perspective that if they think your destiny is towards this thing, they will most probably shape your life and encourage your free will actions to point towards that direction of destiny, so that your destiny and free will are aligned. And I think that's a major indicator of success, more than if you looked at those two perspectives individually.
Yeah, well, I agree. You can maybe, if both have to go together, then it will mean that you can use free will to shape our destiny. But then again, I think we are looking at this from. Okay, of course, we are making many assumptions.
Yep, of course.
I think, of course, we are making many assumptions. And also we are also assuming that all the systems that exist in place, it is in their best interest to help people with that, which is also may not be necessarily true. Sometimes the systems are not there, maybe to allow you to be who you want to be, but they want to maybe shape you to be the way they want you to be. So it's more of maybe they're trying to shape your destiny. So sometimes I think the systems that exist that have been put in place, and when I say these systems, I mean school and the way school is designed and the workplace. If you look at almost every other country, their systems of school tend to have one philosophy. And I think it maybe just to take away the unique differences between humans, because if you look at the way the schools are designed everywhere, you want to have a population that is basically the same, that they're easily ruled, right? So in such a case, it is so easy to predict their destiny. So it is so easy to say this person is fated to be like this, because the system has already shaped them to just follow that path, right? So all of these assumptions, but I think these are philosophical issues.
Yeah.
So there are so many gaps.
There's so much that
we can't be we don't have facts for this.
Yeah.
Like there's no data to just indicate that. But I believe the way systems are designed everywhere, not just everywhere, in the first world, the second world, even the developed world, the developing world, you'll always notice it is the objective of the systems in place to have a population that is easier to rule or control, and that way it becomes easier, because if you have people who are following a path that has been defined from early days. Because if you remember, if you look at little kids, because for them the idea of success has nothing to do with money, or fame. They don't even understand those things, or fame. What they may want to do at that point, if you were to ask them what do they want to do, it's not the same with what they do with their lives. And that means at some point that was stolen from them. They are not exactly what they wanted to be. And because humans are not designed to just do, humans are supposed to be spontaneous. So it is also true to say, even what they wanted to do when they were 5, it's not the same as what they want to do at 10.
Yeah.
But the way the systems are defined, and they're a bit rigid, even in the developed world, the systems are a bit rigid also. People are forced to follow a certain path. So it is actually so easy to predict someone's destiny, because, or in this case, I don't know if it's, I'd say destiny, or where they will end up in life. It's easy to just know this person will end up like this because
like if a person does this and this and this, you automatically know where this person is going.
Because the system has already been defined. It's like it's like a computer program where you already know them. You already know where, if we have these variables, we expect this output.
So that brings us to the issue of, I think people should reshape their idea of what their children should grow into. I think we've been defined by society so much, to a point that we think money is the ultimate definition of success, while you cannot just discount the idea that money defines success. There are so many other things that would define success, including self-fulfillment in life. And I think that programming of people to follow a specific path, that's something that personally I believe, there should be a way in which people are allowed to stay in an area where you are chasing your destiny. You are not just trying to do things to force a specific way. You see, 90%, maybe 70% of children, you ask them while they are still young, as you said, they'll tell you one thing or another, but then the system now programs them into, you have to become this and this for you to be this and to be a successful person. And it's much of a nurture thing than nature thing. So I believe that disconnect between what you are destined to do and what you're doing, no matter how rich you might be, defines your ultimate peace. Because if you put in the effort that is towards your goal, and that goal is in harmony with your destiny, I think spiritually and mentally you will be a very relaxed person. But if you're putting an effort into something, you might achieve it, but if it's away from your destiny, then I think that's where the chaos starts, because you might be getting what society believes to be success, but internally you're not a fulfilled person. So you feel like, why am I doing this? I look like a successful person on the outside, but in the inside you won't have that peace. So I believe that's partly, it's not fully a definition of what guides so much in society, but I believe if someone realizes their destiny at an early age and they're encouraged to follow it, that's where there is a harmony between what society defines as success and what you define as success at a personal level.
Yeah, I think that that's true. But also to add on that, I believe that in a way, almost everybody is more of was shaped by someone else.
Yeah.
So we are not really ourselves.
Okay.
From the way we were supposed to be is not usually the way we end up, because someone shaped our ideas. And that's why when you said, if this is when you said we group them into personalities, there's still an issue with that, because that issue is that at some point this person was shaped to be this way.
Okay.
So that means even the personality itself, someone else manipulated them to be that way. Because there are kids who are very shy. There are people who are very shy, and you think, and someone may say, this person is introverted.
But something happened to them for them to be introverted.
To be like that. So it becomes like, it's not exactly their personality trait.
It's an acquired trait.
It's an acquired trait. So I think that's actually the issue. So someone else controlled this person to be this way. They made them that way. You know? So I think that also...
that should be... That
also, yeah. So it means humans, the way they are not exactly they have not always been supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
Someone pushed them to that direction.
Yeah.
And whether it was positive or negative, they are there. You know, they ended up somewhere.
Yeah, it still means that's not you, that's someone.
Yeah.
Someone else. That's
So it's someone molded you into their own image, what they wanted you to be like. And mostly it's parents. It begins with parents, then teachers. They shape you the way they want you to be.
And maybe that's something maybe we can talk about another day, but maybe we should explore the role of formal education in that, because I think it's a very big part of.
Yeah, I think we can explore that maybe in a different episode. We can talk about how that formal education does impact the development of a child.
Yeah.
And how they shift from their path.
Yeah.
Because if you look at kids, the kids don't usually like the same thing.
Yeah. Kids are different.
In fact, and a kid today will love this, and tomorrow they don't want that.
Yeah.
And that is how humans are naturally. We are spontaneous, and we don't like routine, and we are not supposed to like the same things. We may like this, and tomorrow we want something different. So for someone to say, I love working with computers all my life, like that's what I do, and I love working with computers.
That can be true.
It is possible, very possible that it's not really true, because for a kid, if you are to take a small kid and tell them just work with these computers, and they have the option of not working there every day.
Yeah, they're
tomorrow you won't find them there working. They will just love them today, and tomorrow they will want something else. But because I think all this comes to capitalism. Capitalism has really shaped the world. And if you look at, I think the education mostly is geared towards feeding capitalism.
So
how do we get people to do the same thing every day?
So that's actually what it means. So there's a possibility that you will, I think, back to that argument, I think there's a possibility that you might end up to where you are destined to be. But then that possibility is small because the probabilities have been reduced. You can just do very few things. There's someone who would like to be on that computer, and they have looked forward to doing that for some time, even if they shouldn't be in it every time. There's someone who is real happy on that computer, and there's someone who's on that computer just because they are told, if you do this and this, then that's an indicator of success. So they'll just be on that computer because they are told. You see, the outcomes for these two people will be different, because one is there because they are just forced to be there because of bills, maybe. While the other one is there because they really enjoy being there, even if it's not every time. They actually feel it within themselves that this is what I want to do, and this is what life is all about. So I think that's where now the part of peace comes from, because if you're doing that and you feel like this was my destiny, this is what I always wanted to do, then that's now where the harmony between your free will of working with these computers and the destiny of working with them are married. But if, for example, you are working with this computer, but you've always felt like maybe you should be in human sciences, maybe being a nurse or a doctor, I think you will be working with those computers, trying to earn that money, but at the end of it, you will never feel that full. You will never have that fulfillment, because you've already gone beyond the part where your career is matching with your destiny.
So maybe this is a bit of a philosophical take, but I'll say that the free will of others ends up shaping the fate of others. So for example, if your parent loves computers and they introduce you to computers, so it means at that point they use their free will to guide your fate. And I think that chain continues forever, because everyone wants to shape. There's the same thing with religion. You said you're not a Christian, you're an African, and even if you are Christian by nature. So you are nurtured to be a Christian. So that means if your parents were Muslims, you'll be nurtured to be Muslim. If your parents who are Jewish, you'll be nurtured to be Jewish. And I think that does make sense. So it will mean that other people use their free will to shape other people's fate, and then we also do the same. We keep doing the same. So it's the same thing if someone was to ask you for career advice, and it's someone who respected you, you are more likely going to end up shaping their destiny. Because you shape their career based on your advice. Or if I ask you advice on relationships, and I respect your opinion, it means
People will think
it
you
means
put
you're
in the free will. Your free will led you to that
Yeah,
place.
it
So
means
if they put in the action,
Yeah.
they will also get to where
Yeah.
you are. I think.
Yeah, so it means
That's
your
quite
free
true.
your free will ends up leading my fate.
Yeah.
You see. Yeah.
That's quite true.
Yeah. So
Maybe, maybe a fun fact.
Yeah.
On that perspective, this is at a personal level. My father was a driver, and when I transferred to another school, it was a bit of a bigger school than the one I was in. People were a bit more exposed on that. And when my father was a senior driver for some ambassador in this country, but when I went to that school and I was asked what I want to be in the future, you can guess what I said.
Yeah, you said
I said I wanted to be a driver.
Yeah.
And the manager at the school told me, I want you to be a driver, but you shouldn't be driving for another person. You should be driving for yourself. So I think what you said is true.
Yeah.
My free will would probably shape another person's fate.
Yeah, that
and
makes sense.
That's also true for the opposite.
Yeah. So I believe we have really explored a lot on the issue of fate and free will, and I'm sure, I think based on what we have talked about, I think the conclusion is that they both tend to marry each other, and it's hard to talk about free will and living out fate. So there is a lot of there's fate aspect of fate and free will, and they keep shaping each other. So I think it's more of a cyclic sort of a situation. And I believe that what we've talked about here, it's informative, it's a bit educative, but also it's mostly philosophical texts. We are not really using some established school of thought to talk about this. It's mostly just philosophy,
personal views, and
but I think this was a great episode, and I'm grateful to have you. Shinangoli, in this episode. I don't know if you have some final things you'd like to say to our viewers as we come close to this episode.
Thank you for hosting me. It's been a good time. Such conversations are needed in this society right now. A society where people maybe overlook the role of certain things in their lives. But I think at the end of it, my advice to people, especially parents, we are past a point where success is defined by a single thing. I think we are heading into a future where more self-actualization is required than what society perceives of people. And if you want your kid to have internal peace, I think it's important to figure out what this child is first in the first place, because you are the one who knows this child, and then now try to nurture what that person is. I think that's in harmony with what maybe CVC brings on the table right now. But it's just about trying to balance between what you believe your child is destined to be and what you want them to be. Please try to marry those two and try to find a harmonic way of letting those kids grow the way they want to be. Besides that, I think it's been a good time. Thank you, Nzuki, for having me here. And for everyone, please take this just for a conversational view. Maybe you can even watch this as your question what you are saying. Maybe you have a different view. And until next time, if we'll have another episode of this, thank you, Stanley, and peace, everyone.
So thank you, Shinangoli, for being part of this episode. I'm grateful to have you here. I'm happy that we had this conversation on fate and free will. I'm sure, based on this episode, I'm sure we will have more episodes together. This was an interesting analysis of fate and free will. And I hope the viewers get to enjoy this and also ask that question in their lives. And maybe if you have different views, or even if you have similar views, you can leave your comments in the comment section. And I'm sure we'll continue to interact in the next episodes. So thank you for being part of this podcast. I hope you get something from this episode, and I hope you subscribe to this channel. So thank you very much for being part of this episode.